It all started on a boring Friday night in the small town of Millfield, Pennsylvania, a place where nothing much ever happened. The five of us, me, Ryan, my best friend Jake, his sister Emily, her boyfriend Marcus, and our quiet friend Lila, were sitting around a campfire in Jake's backyard, drinking soda, roasting marshmallows, and sharing ghost stories like we always did. We had all grown up together, the kind of friendship where you knew each other's worst fears, first crushes, and stupidest secrets. But that night, something was different. The air felt heavy, like it was waiting for something. Jake leaned forward, a sly grin spreading across his face. "All right," he said, holding up a flashlight like a microphone. "I dare someone to go inside the Holloway Tunnel." The moment he said it, everyone went quiet. The Holloway Tunnel. Just hearing the name made my stomach twist. Every town had its own scary place, and for Millfield, it was that tunnel. It had been abandoned for decades. An old railway passage that hadn't been used since the 1960s. Over the years, it had gained a dark reputation. People said they'd heard screaming from inside it at night. Others said that those who went too deep never came out the same, if they came out at all. "Come on, man," I said, half laughing. "That place is off limits. It's literally fenced off." "Yeah," Emily chimed in. "Didn't that one guy go missing in there? What's his name? Ben something?" "Ben Carter," Lila said softly. "He went in last summer with his cousin. Only his cousin came back out. Said Ben vanished in the dark." Marcus scoffed. "Urban legends. Probably just got lost and ran off. People disappear all the time." Jake's eyes gleamed in the firelight. "Exactly why we should go. Let's put the stories to the test. One night, we go in a little just to see. We don't even have to go all the way. What do you say?" I looked around. Everyone was thinking the same thing. It was a bad idea, but it was also exciting. Something about testing fear, about proving to ourselves we weren't kids anymore. We were all between 17 and 19, stuck in that in-between place where we were old enough to feel invincible but young enough to still chase thrills. "Fine," Emily said after a long pause. "But only for like 10 minutes. Jake grinned. "Deal. Tomorrow night. Midnight." The deal was sealed with nervous laughs and awkward glances. But none of us backed down. Not even Lila, who looked the most uncertain of all. She always went along with us, always quiet, always watching. After we went home that night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I told myself it would be fine. We'd go in, take a few pictures, make some jokes, and get out. But a part of me couldn't shake the stories I'd heard growing up about the shadows that moved without light, about the voices that called your name from the dark, about the scream that sounded like it came from inside your head. The next day was weird. We all acted normal, texting in the group chat, sharing memes, making fun of Jake for being our fearless leader. But I could tell everyone was a little on edge. Even Marcus, who always talked tough, didn't joke around like usual. That night, we packed our bags, flashlights, water, extra batteries, a couple of walkie-talkies just in case. Jake even brought a crowbar, just to be safe. We met at the edge of Millfield Woods around 11:30 p.m. and started walking toward the old railway path. As we got closer to the tunnel, the trees seemed to close in, the air colder, the silence thicker. No crickets, no wind. Just the sound of our footsteps and our nervous breathing. And then we saw it, the mouth of the Holloway Tunnel. Dark. Wide. Waiting. Jake turned to us with a smirk. "Who's ready to prove this place is just an old story?" No one answered. But we kept walking. By the time we stood before the Holloway Tunnel, our earlier confidence had mostly faded. The thing was massive, its arching, crumbling mouth swallowed the moonlight, a pitch-black void in the middle of the woods. Thick vines wrapped around the stone like veins. The old rusted "No trespassing" sign barely clung to one side of the wall, swaying slightly in the windless night. "Nope," Emily whispered, backing up a step. "That's not a tunnel, that's a death sentence." Jake turned to her. "We haven't even gone in yet." "Exactly," she said. "And already it feels wrong." We stood there for a while, none of us moving. Even Marcus, usually the first to take action, seemed frozen. It wasn't just fear, it was something heavier. Like the air around the tunnel resisted us. Like it was alive, and it knew we were there. Trying to distract ourselves, we started talking about the stories we'd all heard. Some were legends, some were real cases. All of them pointed to the same thing: people went into the Holloway Tunnel and didn't come back. "There was that guy, Mr. Renshaw, the history teacher," Jake said. "He told my brother the tunnel was sealed back in the 60s after 3 railway workers disappeared during repairs." I nodded. And it's not just disappearances. Remember Mrs. Langley? She said when she was a kid, they used to hear screaming at night. Real screaming. And no one believed them until one night her dad went to check and came back pale as a sheet. Wouldn't talk about it again. That was in the 80s, Emily said. My mom said she and her friends used to dare each other to go near the tunnel. One girl went in and came out with blood on her shirt. Said she saw something but never said what. Marcus rolled his eyes. You guys realize this is exactly how every horror movie starts, right? A bunch of kids with a flashlight and a ghost story. But some of the stories line up. Lila spoke quietly. The tunnel used to run straight through Holloway Hill. It was supposed to be expanded to connect to the next town. But halfway through construction, something happened. Some say there was a cave-in, others say the workers found something unnatural. We looked at her, surprised. Lila almost never spoke that much. Jake raised an eyebrow. Where'd you hear that? My grandpa, she said. He was a rail inspector. He said Holloway Tunnel was cursed. Said it was built over something that should have been left alone. A sudden gust of wind blew through the woods, snapping branches overhead. It shouldn't have been possible. There was no wind forecast and the trees had been still all night. Marcus sighed. We're just psyching ourselves out. Let's go in already before we chicken out. He took the first step forward and pushed aside the loose section of the fence. The metal groaned in protest. We followed one by one, flashlights flicking on as we crossed the threshold. The tunnel loomed above us like the open mouth of some ancient beast. As soon as we stepped inside, everything changed. The temperature dropped fast, like stepping into a freezer. The air felt thick, like breathing through wet cloth. Our lights barely cut through the darkness. The walls were lined with old bricks, moss-covered and cracked. Metal rails still stretched into the blackness, rusted and bent in places. We walked in silence for a few minutes. The only sound was our footsteps echoing down the corridor. Occasionally, a drip of water would fall from the ceiling, making us all jump. Then we started noticing the markings. Symbols scratched into the brick walls, faint but deliberate. Circles, spirals, strange angular shapes we couldn't recognize. Some looked almost tribal. Others felt older, like ancient scripts no one had spoken in centuries. What is this stuff? Emily asked, running her hand just above one of the carvings. Don't touch it, Lila said immediately. Her voice was tense. Why? Marcus asked. She didn't answer. The deeper we went, the less it felt like a tunnel. It felt more like a passage into something else, something ancient and hidden, something waiting. We were maybe 200 feet in when our flashlights flickered. Low batteries already? I muttered, checking mine. Jake frowned. I put new ones in an hour ago. That's when we heard it. A sound from deeper inside. Not just an echo. Not water. Not wind. A voice. Faint. Crying. Screaming. The scream didn't sound human. It started low, like someone groaning in pain, but quickly twisted into a high-pitched wail that echoed down the tunnel like a wave of pressure. It bounced off the walls, layering over itself until it sounded like a dozen voices screaming at once. And then it stopped. Instantly. As if someone had pressed mute on the world. We stood frozen, staring into the black mouth of the tunnel ahead. No one spoke. No one moved. What the hell was that? Emily finally whispered, her voice barely audible over her own breathing. Sounded like someone in trouble, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. We could all tell he didn't believe it either. Jake shook his head. That wasn't a person. We shined our flashlights deeper into the tunnel. But the beams seemed weak now, like the dark was pressing back harder the farther we tried to look. The screaming had left behind something else, a low humming, almost like a vibration in our bones. The kind of feeling you get just before a thunderstorm hits. I say we turn back, Emily said, backing toward the exit. That was enough. We did the dare. It's not worth this. Jake hesitated. He didn't want to back down. I could see it in his eyes. He was battling with his pride. But even he wasn't cracking jokes anymore. Not after that sound. We keep going just a little, he finally said. We find the source of that scream, or at least figure out where it's coming from. Then we leave. 10 more minutes. Tops. Lila clutched her flashlight tighter, and I noticed her lips moving, whispering something under her breath. A prayer, maybe? The rest of us looked at each other. No one wanted to be the coward, so we kept walking. The air grew colder, sharper. Our breath began to fog. The tunnel felt like it was getting narrower, the walls inching closer. We walked in a single line now, close enough to touch each other, afraid to fall behind. Our footsteps echoed unnaturally, sometimes returning to us too fast, too delayed. Like the tunnel was playing tricks with sound. Then the smells started. First, it was just damp stone. Then something rotting, like meat left in the sun for days. We covered our mouths, but it didn't help. The smell was inside the tunnel walls. Inside us. This place wasn't meant for people, Lila whispered, as if the tunnel could hear her. We came across an old side alcove, like a maintenance room or a niche where workers might have stored equipment. Except there was nothing inside now. Just more symbols on the walls. Fresh ones. Not ancient carvings, but recently scratched markings, almost frantic. Like someone had used their nails. Scratches. Long and jagged, trailing down from the ceiling to the floor. We stared at them. Then Jake's flashlight flickered again. Off, on, off, on. Batteries are shot, he said, hitting it. Stupid thing. Suddenly, all our lights dimmed at once. Not fully off, but like something had placed a hand over each beam, dulling the glow. And that's when we heard it again. The scream. Closer this time. It echoed not just ahead, but behind us. We all spun around. Nothing. Just the long, empty tunnel. But we were no longer sure which way was the exit. Everything looked the same. Same rusted rails. Same mossy bricks. Same oppressive dark. I pulled out my phone to check the compass app. It didn't load. In fact, it wouldn't even turn on. No signal, I said. Dead. Jake checked his too. Same. Panic started to rise, unspoken but thick in the air. We had no sense of time or direction. All we had was each other, and the growing feeling that we weren't alone. Suddenly, Marcus grabbed my arm. Did you hear that? Hear what? A voice. We all went quiet again. There it was. Soft. A whisper, but not in English. A language none of us understood, echoing down from deeper in the tunnel. Something was waiting for us down there, calling us. Jake turned to face us, voice tight. Okay, screw the dare. We're going back. But as we turned, we realized something terrifying. The tunnel behind us was no longer the same. The entrance was gone. Only darkness stretched in every direction. The tunnel had shifted, and we were already too far inside. We stood in a frozen circle, our flashlights trembling in our hands, facing the direction we thought we came from, but it didn't look right. The tunnel seemed longer, deeper. No trace of the faint moonlight that had once glowed at the entrance. No breeze, no sound, just that same thick blackness that felt alive. We didn't walk that far, Emily said, voice shaking. There should be light. There should be something. Maybe we took a wrong turn, Marcus muttered, spinning around in place. There could have been a fork. There wasn't a fork, Jake said sharply. I was watching. There's only one way in and out. Well, not anymore, I said, trying to keep calm even as dread coiled in my chest. Let's retrace our steps. Slowly. Stay close. We turned around and began walking the way we thought we had come, though nothing looked familiar anymore. Every shadow looked like a figure. Every dripping sound made us flinch. The tunnel suddenly felt longer. We'd walked for only a minute or two earlier, but now we'd been going back for at least 10. Still no exit. Still no change. It was like walking in circles through a nightmare. That's when we found the handprint. It was smeared across the wall, long, wet, and red. Blood, still fresh, as if someone had stumbled by just minutes before. We froze. Okay, who the hell's messing with us? Marcus asked, stepping forward, trying to sound tough. Is this some prank? Hidden speaker? Fog machine? No one's messing with us, Lila whispered. It's the tunnel. Jake turned to her. What do you mean? She stared at the wall. It's not just haunted. It's alive. It doesn't want us to leave. Before anyone could respond, a sound ripped through the air. A scream. Not a distant one like before. This was right next to us. High-pitched, violent, human, but warped, as if it was torn through layers of static. The scream echoed off the walls surrounding us. It sounded like it came from every direction at once. We dropped to our knees, hands over our ears. The noise was unbearable. My skull felt like it was splitting open. It wasn't just sound, it was pressure. Like the tunnel itself was vibrating, shaking something loose in our minds. Then, just like before, it stopped. Silence. Complete. It was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. Is everyone okay? Jake asked shakily. We nodded, slowly standing. But that's when we noticed Marcus was gone. Marcus? Emily spun around, her voice rising. Marcus, where are you? We whipped our flashlights in every direction, calling his name. Nothing. No footprints. No sign of a struggle. Just gone. He was right next to me, I said. There was no sound. He didn't scream. He didn't even breathe weird. He just disappeared, Lila said, finishing the sentence with a chill in her voice. Emily was already running down the tunnel. Marcus. Marcus, this isn't funny. Come out. Jake chased after her. Wait. Stay together. We all ran, our flashlights bobbing wildly in the dark. Still no sign of Marcus. We called his name until our voices went hoarse. Then Emily stopped suddenly, staring down at something on the ground. It was his flashlight. Still on. Still warm. But covered in something thick and dark. I bent to look. Blood. Not fresh this time, blackened and clotted. As if it had been sitting for days. But he was just here, Jake said. He was right here. What the hell is going on? Lila knelt beside the flashlight, her expression unreadable. He's not dead, she whispered. Jake looked at her sharply. How do you know? Because the tunnel's not done with us yet. We all turned to her. What do you mean? Emily asked, her voice cracking. Lila finally looked up. This place, it doesn't just take people. It feeds on them. On us. Our fear. Our voices. Our pain. That scream wasn't Marcus's. It was someone else. Someone who came before us. How do you know that? I asked. She held up a small object in her hand. A necklace. Old. Rusted. Still damp. It wasn't Marcus's. Someone else had left it here. Someone who never made it out. And now one of us had joined them. We didn't speak for a long time. The silence was oppressive, not just around us but between us. Marcus was gone, just gone, and the tunnel seemed to thrum with satisfaction like it had claimed its first offering and was already hungry for more. The four of us, me, Jake, Emily, and Lila, stood clustered near the spot where Marcus's flashlight had been found. It still lay there, its beam flickering as if unsure whether it wanted to keep shining or not. Jake reached down and picked it up, wiping the blood off with his sleeve, but he didn't turn it off. No more splitting up, I said firmly. We stay together. No exceptions. We should have never come here, Emily whispered. Her hands trembled as she gripped her flashlight, knuckles white. We should have listened to the stories. They weren't just campfire lies. Lila said nothing, but her eyes kept scanning the walls, the ceiling. She seemed to be listening not just to the tunnel, but to something deeper, something beneath the tunnel. We continued walking. No one really decided it. We just started moving, slowly, quietly, trying to stay sane. Every step felt heavier, like the air thickened the farther we went. It was like walking through molasses, both physically and mentally. Time felt broken. Minutes dragged like hours. Or maybe it had only been minutes since Marcus vanished. There were no longer any markings on the walls. No carvings. No graffiti. Just smooth, blank stone and the sound of our breathing. At some point, the old rails we'd been following disappeared too, no more metal tracks, just rough, uneven stone. We were no longer in a tunnel. At least, not one made by people. What is this place? Jake muttered. This isn't part of the railroad. Lila finally spoke. It's under it. We're below the tunnel now. We've been walking downward without noticing. No way, I said. We haven't gone down any stairs or slopes. It doesn't need stairs, she replied softly. It pulls. This place bends. That sent a chill straight through me. Jake stopped and looked at her. Okay, how do you know all this? You keep saying things like you've been here before. I haven't, Lila said. But I've dreamed about it. Emily stared at her. What? Lila nodded slowly. Since I was a kid. I never told anyone. I'd wake up sweating, screaming. Always trapped in a dark place. The same place. This one. Jake opened his mouth to respond, but the lights went out. All of them. Total darkness. I couldn't even see my hand in front of my face. Jake? Emily? Lila? I called out, panic spiking fast. I'm here. Emily's voice rang from somewhere to my left. Same. Jake's came from behind me. But Lila didn't answer. Lila? I spun around. Say something. Lila. Emily shouted. Nothing. Just breathing. And then, a sound like stone scraping on stone. Something massive shifting nearby. Then, footsteps. Not ours. Heavy. Dragging. Wet. They moved slowly, deliberately, circling. I held my breath, trying to pinpoint the sound. Whatever it was close. Very close. I felt something brush past my leg, cold and smooth, like skin. I flinched and stumbled back, heart slamming in my chest. "Turn your lights on," Jake yelled. "I can't. Mine won't work." "Mine either." The footsteps stopped. Then a whisper slithered through the blackness. Not a voice any of us recognized. It wasn't a language, it was a feeling, like someone whispering into your bones. Then Lila's voice called out, but not from nearby. It echoed from deep, deep inside the tunnel. "Help me." Emily's breath hitched. "That's her. That's Lila. We have to go." We ran toward the sound, blindly, stumbling and crashing into walls. The darkness felt solid, like it wrapped around our legs and slowed us down. My lungs burned. My hands scraped stone. Somewhere behind us, something growled, low and guttural. Finally, just as panic threatened to break me, my flashlight flickered on for a half-second. In that brief flash, I saw the tunnel open into a large, dome-like chamber. And just before the light died again, I saw Lila, standing perfectly still, her eyes wide, blank, glowing faintly. And behind her, something enormous. Watching. Waiting. The light from my flashlight blinked out just as fast as it had come, plunging us back into darkness. But the image seared itself into my mind, Lila standing like a statue, her eyes glowing with a faint, sickly yellow light, and behind her, that thing. I couldn't explain what I saw. It wasn't just big, it was wrong. Like my brain couldn't fully process its shape. I remembered too many limbs, the way shadows bent around it, how its form shifted like smoke and bone, flesh and metal, as if reality didn't know what to do with it. It wasn't supposed to exist in this world. Emily's hand grabbed mine in the dark. "Tell me you saw that too," she whispered, trembling. "I saw it," I whispered back. "We need to get Lila." "No," Jake said firmly from behind us. "She's gone. That wasn't her anymore." "We don't know that," Emily hissed. Her eyes were glowing, man. "Something's using her." But before any of us could argue further, the whispering returned. Not from a single voice, but dozens. Hundreds. All around us. Male and female, old and young, some crying, some laughing, some screaming. It was like every soul that had ever entered the tunnel and never left was now speaking through the walls. They were saying one word, over and over, in dozens of overlapping voices: "Stay." I gripped my flashlight tight and tried the button again. Click. Nothing. Click, click. A flicker. Click, it flared to life for a few seconds, and in that time, we saw Lila walking slowly toward us. But it wasn't her walking. It was more like her body was being puppet, stiff and jerky, like a doll on invisible strings. Her mouth hung open slightly, eyes still glowing. And behind her, the thing crept forward. No footsteps, no sound, just movement. Smooth, flowing, like a shadow slithering across oil. "Run," Jake said quietly. But Emily started. I said run. We turned and sprinted into the darkness. Our flashlights worked just enough to illuminate short bursts of the tunnel ahead. Crumbling walls, jagged rocks, and sharp turns we didn't remember taking before. The tunnel was different again, shifting, rearranging itself like a maze designed to trap us. We turned left, then right, then down a slope that hadn't been there before. Something scraped behind us, a chittering like claws on stone. Then the heavy, wet dragging noise returned. Closer now. Faster, I yelled. But the ground beneath us suddenly tilted. We tumbled forward, sliding down a steep incline of loose gravel and stone. The tunnel had turned into a chute. We couldn't stop ourselves. We slid for what felt like forever until we crashed into another chamber, this one smaller, circular, walls covered in strange, pulsating veins that glowed faintly red. Jake groaned, sitting up. "What the hell is this?" Emily was sobbing quietly, her jeans torn, blood on her knees. "We're going to die in here." I looked around. The chamber didn't feel like part of the tunnel at all. It felt organic, like we were inside a living thing. The air was hot, moist. Every breath tasted of rust and decay. Suddenly, a low hum filled the space. Then a light. Not from our flashlights, but from the wall itself. An opening formed in front of us. Not a door. A mouth. And from it, Marcus crawled out. He was covered in grime and blood, eyes wide, mouth hanging open like he was screaming silently. "Marcus!" Emily cried. She ran toward him, but I pulled her back. Something was wrong. He wasn't looking at us. He was looking through us. Jake stepped forward. "Dude, you okay?" Marcus fell to the ground, convulsing. His body spasmed violently, back arching, hands clawing at the stone. Then he whispered something. I saw it. I leaned in. What did you see? Marcus's eyes rolled back. And then he screamed. A sound like 1,000 voices tore from his throat. So loud and unnatural it shattered Jake's flashlight. The walls shook. Emily fell to her knees. My ears rang. Blood leaked from Marcus's nose and eyes. And then, suddenly, he stopped moving. Dead. Jake backed away in horror. That thing used him. Spit him out. I stared at the mouth in the wall, still open. Still pulsing. Lila was gone. Marcus was gone. And whatever lived in this tunnel was done hiding. Marcus's body lay still in the center of that grotesque chamber, twisted in death like a discarded puppet. The silence that followed his final scream was even worse than the sound itself. It carried the weight of finality, of defeat, of a warning. But I couldn't let it end like that. Couldn't leave him or Lila. Emily clung to me, her sobs quieting as we both stared at the still open wall mouth, really, through which Marcus had been ejected like spoiled meat. Jake paced in tight circles, one hand tugging at his hair, muttering, We're dead. It's over. It's gonna kill us like it killed them. We were never supposed to come here. No, I said, the word sharp in the stillness. It didn't kill Marcus. It used him. And it hasn't killed us yet because it's not finished with us. Jake stopped. How is that better? Because it means there's still a chance. If it wanted us dead, we'd be gone already. But it's keeping us here. Feeding off something. Fear, maybe. Despair. Pain. If we stop giving it what it wants, then maybe we can break free, Emily whispered. Jake wasn't convinced, but he nodded anyway. So what's the plan? We just walk out? There's no tunnel anymore. This place, it changed everything. I turned to the wall opposite the mouth. There was something faint there. A crack in the stone, narrow and sharp, barely wide enough to squeeze through. I don't think it changed everything, I said. It's trying to make us forget there's a way out. But it can't seal every exit. Not completely. Emily crawled closer to the crack. It looks tight. Like, tight? Jake sighed. Better than just waiting here to be eaten. We moved quickly. We didn't talk. Talking felt like giving the thing power again. We stayed silent, crawling through the jagged stone gap one at a time, scraping our shoulders and knees on the rough edges. The moment we passed through, the air changed. Cooler. Drier. We were out of the pulsing chamber and back into the stone tunnel. But it wasn't the same section as before. This one felt older. More natural. We could see broken wooden beams holding up the ceiling, old rails buried beneath rubble, even rusted mining tools strewn about. No carvings. No veins. Just an old, forgotten path. The kind people used to run from when the screaming started. Jake found an old lantern and, somehow, it still worked, dimly, flickering orange, but it gave us hope. We walked faster now, following the slope upward. At every turn, we listened for it. The whispers. The footsteps. The dragging sound. But none came. It was like the tunnel was letting us go. Or luring us deeper. That hope flickered when we found the wall. It was a cave-in, thick rocks, beams, and years of dust and debris. The tunnel ended in a jagged, impassable blockade. Jake kicked it in frustration. No. No. We were so close. Emily collapsed against the wall. We're trapped. It played us. I ran my fingers along the wall. The rocks were loose in some places. Not solid. With effort, maybe. I picked up a rusted pickaxe from the ground. We dig. Jake looked at me like I was crazy. That'll take hours. We're not going back, I said. And this is our only shot. We started chipping at the stones. Slowly. Painfully. Each swing of the pickaxe sent dust into our lungs and our muscles screamed from exhaustion, but we kept going. Each crack we made felt like rebellion. Like we were fighting back. And that's when the sound returned. Faint. Distant. A low hiss. A wet shuffle. It knew what we were doing. And it was coming. Faster now. Jake took the pickaxe. I'll keep digging. You two hold it off. With what? Emily asked. I looked around and spotted an old mining torch. I lit it with shaking hands. Fire. It might hate fire. We stood in front of the tunnel's entrance while Jake swung the pickaxe behind us, rocks tumbling. The thing crept closer. I could feel it. Smell it. Rot and mold and burning hair. Then finally Jake shouted. I see the sky. I see the sky. It's a way out. He broke through and moonlight spilled in. Emily and I turned and ran toward it as the tunnel behind us filled with a growl so deep it shook our teeth. Jake helped us climb through, one by one. The moment we all scrambled out, I turned and looked back into the hole and saw Lila. Just for a second. She stood at the edge, eyes still glowing, mouth still open, but something different in her expression. A trace of sadness. Then the rocks caved in again, sealing the hole, and she was gone. The cold night air hit us like a shock as we spilled out of the tunnel's mouth, gasping and coughing. The stars were sharp and clear overhead, and the moon hung bright, a silent witness to what we had escaped or what had let us escape. Jake collapsed on the ground, exhaustion pulling him down. Emily sank beside him, tears still streaked down her face, but her eyes held a flicker of relief. I stood still, breathing hard, staring back at the sealed entrance, the black hole that swallowed Lila and nearly us all. Did we really make it out? Emily whispered. I swallowed. I don't know. But whatever that thing was, whatever the tunnel is, it didn't want to let us go. For a long moment, none of us spoke. We just sat there, the cool night wrapping around our broken bodies. Then Emily finally asked the question that was on all our minds. What do we tell people? No one's going to believe this. Jake laughed bitterly. Tell them we lost Marcus and Lila. Tell them we found a tunnel that's a living nightmare. Tell them the thing that screams and whispers and drags people into the darkness. We don't have proof, I said. Only scars and memories. Emily shuddered. I don't want to remember. I do, Jake said quietly. Because if we forget, it wins. Over the next few days, we tried to return to normal life, but none of us could shake the tunnel's grip. Marcus was never found. His disappearance became a mystery, a story whispered in the town but dismissed as another tragic accident. Lila's name faded from conversations, replaced by rumors and fear. But inside, the tunnel stayed alive. I would wake in the middle of the night, hearing distant screams, soft whispers that made my skin crawl. Sometimes I thought I saw faint glowing eyes in the dark corners of my room. Emily stopped talking to most people. She moved away, unable to face reminders of what happened. Jake tried to research the tunnel's history, digging through old newspapers, maps, and legends. What he found was chilling, stories of people who vanished, who were found months later, if at all, changed, broken, sometimes dead. They spoke of a place beneath the earth, a tunnel that wasn't built but grown, a place where time and reality bent, feeding on fear and pain. And sometimes, if you listened closely in the dead of night, you could hear the screaming. We had survived. But the tunnel had marked us. We were never the same again. Sometimes when the wind shifted just right, I swear I hear Lila's voice whisper my name. And I know the tunnel is still waiting. For the next group. The next scream. 28.